Hello drivers! As a fan of Stuntman and Formula 1, I have always had a soft spot for the final movie of the original Stuntman, Live Twice for Tomorrow. At this point in the game, the challenge is at its hardest, but we are also shooting the movie in a French Riviera city that is Monaco. It feels close to Nice in drivery in terms of city details, and it's also a place where one of the most iconic racing circuits in the world takes place, the Monaco Grand Prix. And with this year's Grand Prix around the corner, I started to wonder how much of the actual Formula 1 track is present in the different levels of this final movie in Stuntman. Are we only driving through a Monaco-inspired backdrop, or can we actually recognize real sections of the Grand Prix layout? Let's find out. We do not really need to play the first two scenes for this comparison, because they are mostly set in the mountains with highway action and big stunt moments. Very cool for the movie, but not really useful if we want to follow the Formula 1 track. The third scene, however, puts us directly inside the city, and not just anywhere. We start very close to one of the most famous corners of the Monaco circuit, the Fairmont Hairpin, also known historically as the Grand Hotel Hairpin. In real life, this is the slowest corner of the Formula 1 calendar, but in Stuntman, we are obviously not here to take it carefully in first gear. What is interesting is that the level sends us in the opposite direction compared to the real Formula 1 lap. In the race, drivers come down from Mirabeau Haute, turn into the Fairmont Hairpin, then continue to Mirabeau Bas, Portier, and eventually the tunnel. But here we can drive back up toward the casino area instead. Thanks to Snoopii's cheats, I can explore the level without worrying about the timer, the objectives, or the director cutting the scene because I went too far away from the intended route. Now, if we try to follow the real Formula 1 direction from the hairpin toward Portier and the tunnel, the result is sadly not very convincing. The road is not really accessible, and if we push too far, we simply fall through the ground. So this part around Portier in the entrance to the tunnel is missing and not properly modeled for gameplay. That is a bit disappointing because the tunnel is obviously one of the most iconic sections of Monaco, but at the same time, the second scene of Live Twice for Tomorrow already features a tunnel action sequence, so maybe they also wanted to avoid repeating the same idea too much. But the level still gives us something very interesting. If we drive back in the other direction, we can reach the Casino Square area. During the real Grand Prix, that is turn 4 of the circuit, right after Massenet and before the descent toward Mirabeau. On race weekends, Monaco is evilly transformed by barriers, fences, grandstands and advertisements, so the casino itself is not always the most visible landmark when watching the race, but it is there, and in Stuntman we can clearly recognize the idea of this casino roundabout section. We can continue a little bit further, but the level was not designed to recreate the full climb and descent of the F1 track. The connection toward Massenet, Beau Rivage and Sainte Dévote is not fully rendered here. So, in this third scene, we mostly get the Casino Square and hairpin side of the Monaco layout, but not the full upper section of the lap. But that's not all. The last two movie scenes share the same general area of the city, but the fourth scene is the most interesting one for our comparison because it gives us access to another large part of the Grand Prix circuit. If we drive back toward the beginning of the level, we can even see the exit of the famous tunnel. This is great because it visually connects with the missing part from the previous scene. We cannot really drive through the tunnel as a complete racing section, but we can at least understand where we are compared to the real Monaco track. And right after the tunnel in Formula 1, there is the Nouvelle Chicane. It is the heavy braking zone at the end of the tunnel straight and one of the rare overtaking opportunities in Monaco. In Stuntman, it's interesting because it is not a part that we are normally taking during the mission because we are going to the docks instead, but in fact, it is possible to do the same turn in the game. After the Nouvelle Chicane, the real circuit continues along the harbour toward Tabac, then into the swimming pool section, La Piscine in French. This section is also present in the real world, but during race weekends it is surrounded by so many barriers and temporary structures that you can almost forget there is an actual swimming pool there. In Stuntman, we must drive around this harborside area and we can recognize the general layout. We can follow the road toward the swimming pool complex, then continue toward the final part of the lap because we are supposed to chase a van in the mission. That is where we reach Rascasse, another very famous Monaco corner, before arriving at the final corner, Antony Noghès. After that, the real cars accelerate onto the start-finish straight on Boulevard Albert Ier. And surprisingly, this part is in fact also accessible in Stuntman, even though you are still chasing the van and you are not really noticing where you are driving. But you can even drive on the main straight, where the Monaco Grand Prix laps begins in real life. From there you can reach Sainte Dévote, the first corner of the track. However, the climb after Sainte Dévote toward Beau Rivage and Massenet is not fully drivable. If we try to continue, we eventually fall through the level again. But we can still see a bit of the climb, which helps us understand how this section will connect back toward Casino Square and the third movie scene. So, if we combine the two city levels from Live Twice for Tomorrow, we actually get a surprisingly large part of the Monaco Grand Prix layout. Not a perfect full lap, of course. The main missing parts are the tunnel itself, the Portier connection, and the full climb from Sainte Dévote through Beau Virage and Massenet toward Casino Square. But we still have the casino area, the Fairmont Hairpin, part of the harbour section, the Nouvelle Chicane, Tabac, La Piscine, La Rascasse, Antony Noghès, the start-finish straight, and Sainte Dévote. Honestly, I was not expecting that much before making this comparison. Stuntman is not trying to be a racing game, and Live Twice for Tomorrow is not trying to recreate the Monaco Grand Prix. It is using Monaco as a movie set, with streets selected for action, jumps, crashes, and cinematic stunts. But when you compare it with the real Formula 1 track, you can see that Reflections still used a lot of recognizable Monaco geography. The city is simplified, limited, and sometimes only built where the mission needs it, but the connection with the real circuit is definitely there. And that makes the final movie even cooler for me. It is not only the hardest part of Stuntman, it is also a small cinematic PlayStation 2 era interpretation of Monaco, with enough of the Grand Prix layout hidden inside to make the exploration worth it. And it also shows how much Monaco is changed when Grand Prix days are in. So what do you think? Did you expect Stuntman to include that much of the Monaco track? And did you recognize this section when you played Live Twice for Tomorrow back in the day? Tell me in the comment, and in any case, see you soon, drivers.
Right. And again. Overtake on the right. Overtake on the left.